I wanted to show you a few of the books I use as reference for music notation and the history of music notation and engraving and such things as that. A few books about orchestration and so forth. The first one I have here is called The Art of Music Engraving and Processing by Ted Ross, and it's recommended and referenced in a lot of bibliographies that you'll find about music notation. So this is the first one. Let's take a look at some of the contents.
According to the Flyleaf, Ted Ross has got a lot of experience in engraving, and he's the head of engraving and production at Hanson Publications. He went to the University of North Carolina and worked in Atlanta and New York.
See, this next one is called Music Engraving and Printing.
This particular book is a reprint of Da Capo Press, and it came out in 1971.
Here's another one. I just recently ordered this one, Preparing Music Manuscript by Anthony Donato.
This book is a reprint of the 1963 Prentice Hall edition.
This one is probably the most comprehensive of all the books I've got. It's fairly new. It's called Behind Bars by Elaine Gould. Let's take a look at some of what it has to offer.
According to the Flyleaf here, Elaine Gould is the senior new music editor at Faber Music since 1987.
This next one is a tried and true, stood the test of time, music notation by Gardner Read. Take a look at some of that.
At the time this book was published, 1969, Gardner Read was composer in residence and professor of composition at Boston University.
Here's another book that's referred to quite often in other books on music notation. This one's called Music Notation in the 20th Century, a Practical Guidebook by Curt Stone.
Curt Stone has been active and played a leading role in the Index of New Musical Notation and the International Conference on New Musical Notation in Ghent, Belgium of 1974.
Here's one by an English author, Richard Ratstall, called The Notation of Western Music. I'm not very familiar with this one, but let's take a look at it anyway.
Richard Ratstall is a lecturer in music at the University of Leeds. His book is mainly concerned with the historical development of music notation from early manuscripts up through the 1600s and on into the more recent times.
Now I've got a couple of older books. Here's one called...
It's really a handbook on music notation. It has a lot about idiomatic notation for instruments, as well as a lot of information about vocal notation.
And here's another one that's been around for a while, Music Notation and Terminology.
This book came out in 1914 and was written by a professor at the Oberlin Conservatory. It has a lot of old-fashioned terminology in it, but it is interesting from a historical perspective.
Now I'd like to move into some books that are more on orchestration. This can be very helpful in notation.
This is a classic text which has been around for a long time and used by many people. It has a lot of examples and is a solid reference. This is another traditional text which is an excellent reference book and has many examples and used to be one of the standard orchestration texts. This is perhaps the most widely used orchestration book currently in use, and it is very thorough, and it also comes with a workbook. This is a very practical book as well. It's not as widely known, but it has a lot of examples, particularly about transcribing piano music for different sections of the orchestra. Since the band has its own particular set of layout, it's a good idea to have a reference book for band scoring. This is a reprint of a classic text. It's mainly historical, about the development of instruments and the growth of the orchestra. It has a lot of useful information about playing characteristics of instruments. This book is primarily concerned with the special characteristics of the various sections of the orchestra and goes into some detail on those subjects. This book contains an alphabetically arranged information about all things in the orchestra and things related to the orchestra. It's more like a small encyclopedia. This book is a standard text about music copying and manuscript the old-fashioned way. The standardized chord symbols is a companion to that book, and these two are very helpful for copyists before the computer came along. This is a small book, but it has a lot of examples about early music printing, especially in the period of the Renaissance. These two books go together. Volume 2 contains all of the manuscript reproductions, historical, and Volume 1 is an explanation of all of the manuscripts. Once you get through all the texts on music notation, then each publisher has its own house style, and here are some examples of the books that show in detail what is expected from the various publishers within their own publications. Thanks for watching.